My name is Claire Bowie, and I am currently studying journalism at QUT.
So I thought I would start this blog and discuss things about sort of the future of journalism and where I think it's going and the potential issues that I think we're going to run into in the future. So one of my first topics that I want to discuss with you today is blogging. So we were lucky enough to have Nikki Parkinson come in and talk to us the other day about all things blogging. So Nikki is the founder of Styling You, which is an incredibly popular blog that provides busy women with tips and tricks on fashion, styling, and beauty. The main idea behind Nikki's lecture was to give us an understanding of how we can make blogging a career for us. So she first decided to go into how we can build our audience. And the first way she pointed out was ensuring that we write in a way that invites comments so we have that relationship with our audience. Next, she discussed the importance of making an online community and our use of social media. So ensuring that we are present wherever our audience is going to be looking and interacting with. So whether that be have an Instagram page, have a Facebook page, create Facebook groups, just ensuring that our audience is consistently being engaged by our brand. And finally, she said it was really important to develop an email database so that we can be sending out information to our audience, whether that be newsletters or just event invites or things like that. Next, she went into the business side of things and how we can make a blog make us money. The first way she said was obviously banner advertising, which we've all seen, whether that be on a blog, on a news website, or anything like that. However, she said that that doesn't generate that much income for her. The biggest income for her is within her sponsored posts and her brand ambassadorships. So that's basically promoting a brand on her blog so that her audience base becomes aware of that particular brand or product. And the other major way she said that she makes her money is through selling products or e-courses. So for her, she sells a styling program. I've been on other blogs where it's been about fitness and nutrition, and they sell sort of programs to help with weight loss or things like that. She left us with 3 things that we should think about when we're creating our blog or writing our blog. And that is that we need to think about where we like to hang out on social media, think about where our potential audience is hanging out, and then think about the type of content that we can create for those particular audiences. Now, this gave me a real insight into her blog and how I could possibly make my blog my career. But I do have a concern about this push for us as young journalists to go into blogging, and the perception that blogging and journalism are the same thing. I guess the ultimate question that I kind of want to answer today is whether or not all journalists can be bloggers and whether all bloggers are journalists. So, in my endeavour to answer this question, I decided to look into the main differences between blogging and journalism. And one of the clearest differences for me was objectivity versus subjectivity. So, as journalists, we are encouraged to be as objective as possible when we are approaching a news story. We're supposed to present both sides in a balanced way and get quotes from both sides as well. Whereas bloggers are supposed to be subjective. People are reading their blog to get their perspective on the issue. So I guess the difference in the way that you approach a story is very, very different. Another major difference is credibility. A lot of the time, bloggers won't use research or secondary quotes to support what they are saying. It's purely their belief. So therefore, the credibility of what they are saying is purely based on whether or not the audience trusts them. Whereas journalists put themselves in the position that they don't know everything. So they do rely on research, external data, and sources to provide them with quotes that reinforces whatever the point of view is that they're trying to represent. Also, the major difference in the construction of the story is also very different, and the source of the story itself. Journalists usually go out and find their own stories. They ask the questions and they figure out what hasn't been told about a particular issue. Whereas bloggers, more often than not, are simply commenting on something that's already been discussed in the media or finding a new angle on a topic that hasn't yet been discussed yet. So for me, the whole construction of a story is incredibly different between blogging and journalism. The other major difference is the relationship that you have with your audience. With journalism, it's a fairly professional relationship. You don't sort of engage with them on a person-to-person basis. It's more us providing the reader with information. Whereas with a blogger, you do engage with your audience. You are talking to them on social media. You are asking questions of them and they are asking questions of you. And you do develop a fairly personal connection with some people. The other difference is also the medium that they use. Nowadays, with the growth of social media, the need for visual storytelling, a lot of journalists are cross-platform journalists. We no longer just have someone that's writing for a newspaper and doesn't have a presence in any other way. Whereas with bloggers, a lot of the time they are just on the internet, and that's the only way that you're going to be able to access their information. And finally, one of the most major differences for me is actually the legal liability of being a blogger versus a journalist. As a journalist, we are aware of our legal liability and our legal responsibility to provide factual, accurate, and unbiased information. Whereas with bloggers, they don't have that. They don't have the legal responsibility to be accurate, to not defame someone, to not make unresearched and unfounded allegations towards someone or about a topic. So for me, the differences between the two are clear, but if you are one of the many that sees it as same, I think there is a potential for the public to be incredibly misled and misinformed. I think in the public's eye, the difference between blogging or opinion writing versus the news is very, very blurred, and that is very, very dangerous. So, really, to me, I think journalists can be bloggers, but not every blogger is a journalist. But in saying that, I'm also very doubtful that people will be able to successfully make the transition between the two. If you're in the habit of voicing your own opinion or being relaxed about making unconfirmed allegations about someone online, I could imagine it would be very difficult to change and revert back to the style and practices that the other genre allows and requires. So I don't know about you, but I think it is important that as young journalists, we don't get swept up into thinking that blogging and journalism is the same, and ensure that if we do decide to switch between the two, we constantly remind ourselves of the different roles we are playing and the importance of remaining transparent. If you decide to write an opinion piece or start a blog, you need to make sure that your readers are aware that what you are writing isn't objective and is probably not based on fact or even any external sources. It is your opinion, and it needs to be clear to audiences. Well, thanks for listening, and if you have an opinion on whether journalists and bloggers are the same thing, or whether we can switch between the two, let me know. Thanks for listening.